Oh, hello, Spirit House here. I'm reading again from The Secret of Light by Walter Russell, and I'm beginning in this video on chapter 14 entitled Weight. Weight is a measure of unbalance. It indicates the intensity of desire of any mass which is out of balance to find balance. Every mass in the universe has its proper potential position. Every mass will find that position if not prevented from doing so by the bindings of other masses. Weight should be measured duly as temperature is. It should have an above and below zero to measure the intensity of desire in masses to rise from the earth as well as to fall toward it. Weight is matter out of place. All matter is a record of its potential at that place of its birth and its wave. Masses of matter, like buoys floating in the ocean to mark courses for ships, are floating in space to register the electric potential of the position of their birth. Whenever matter is in the place of its birth, it belongs there. It is, therefore, in balance. It floats in its balanced field. In that position, it is weightless in respect to anything else in the universe. Whenever it is taken from its field center or becomes an eccentric part of another field, it is out of balance with the two forces acting upon it. It then has weight, and the measure of that weight is the measure of its unbalance with its out-of-place environment. Weight of measure and matter of electrical let me start that over. Weight of matter and measure of electric potential are one and the same thing. Weight is unbalance. A body which floats has no measurable weight. It is in balance with its environment. Likewise, a dead battery has no measurable electric potential. An ohmmeter needle points to zero. Its two unbalanced conditions of charge and discharge have become voided by each other. The measure called weight and the measure called electric potential are the expression of force which the two electric opposites of charge and discharge exert against each other at any point in the universe. The potential of all orbits of matter in space in which matter floats is equal to the potential of the mass which floats in it. The plane of our Earth's equatorial region coincides with an equipotential plane of pressure which is equally balanced in respect to that part of the earth which floats above that plane, and that part which floats below it. In this plane, the earth has no weight whatsoever in respect to anything in the entire universe, for it is in a balanced position in respect to the entire universe, and keeps moving into a new position only because of the movement of all other masses in the universe. Our balanced earth is weightless. The earth could have weight only if it removed to other pressures farther extended from the plane of the lens-like wheel of which our sun is the hub. If it could be pushed toward the sun by some giant hand, it would seek balance in its own orbit when released, exactly as a man would rise when plunged beneath his own balance level in water. Every freely moving mass in the universe floats in its own equally divided wave field, exactly as a man floats in water. Displacement, I guess, in a way. That's a side note. The moon is not falling upon the earth, as generally supposed, for it is in balance with its environment and cannot fall. Its contracted mass and equal to the expanded mass is... Okay, let me start this paragraph over. The moon is not falling upon the earth, as generally supposed, for it is in balance with its environment and cannot fall. Its contracted mass is equal to the expanded mass it displaces in its wave field. For the same reason a cloud floats in the sky. If one could put scales under it, one would find it had no weight unless lifted above or thrust below its equipotential level. If condensed into heavier vapor, it would fall to seek new static equator, which it would again float. If it condensed to rain, it would fall into the sea to find balance in a light condition. Weight is not a fixed property of matter. It is as variable as matter is variable. A man weighs less as he climbs a mountain, weighs more as he descends into a mine, and weighs nothing when he floats in water. Unless and until matter is extended from a plane of equal pressure, there can be no weight, nor can there be electric potential. Weight curves gravity. The equilibrium of sea level is a good example. If that static equator has no dynamic wave extensions, there can be no electric pressures exerted to express in weight, nor could there be weight of waves when waves are not extended from it. Waves above sea level have a positive weight when they fall toward gravity. Waves below sea level have negative weight when they rise toward space to find balance at sea level. Weight is, therefore, but a dimension of unbalance. Unbalance alone can be weighed, for there can be no weight in balance. Weight defined. The following definitions of weight are in keeping with natural law. Weight is the sum of the differences between the two pressures which act upon every mass. Weight is the measure of the differences in electric potential between any mass and the volume it occupies. Weight is the measure of unbalance between any mass and its displaced environment. Weight is the measure of the force which a body exerts in seeking its true potential. Weight is the sum of the difference between the inward pull of gravitation and the outward thrust of radiation. Weight is the measure of intensity of the desire within all matter to express motion or seek rest from motion. And a caption from the Divine Iliad. For again I say, each of the two lights which giveth form to my knowing, through my thinking, giveth its all to the other one become the other one sequentially. Light giveth to darkness to again become light, as life giveth to death to again become life. Likewise, darkness of heaven giveth darkness unto suns to again become dark, as suns giveth light unto heavens to again become suns. Thuswise, all things of earth giveth unto heavens to again become earth things by the givings of heavens. Thus do all my creating things simulate the oneness of my knowing, by interchanging their all for oneness in me. That interchanging records my knowing and pulsations of my thinking, but my thinking is not me. My knowing alone is me. From the Divine Iliad. Chapter 14, The Source of Solar Energy. Let me take a drink of water, please. Thank you. All right. The Source of Solar Energy, Chapter 14. One of the greatest mysteries of science is the source of the sun's renewing energy. At the present rate of solar radiation, the sun should have burned out long ago. What keeps the fires burning? What is it that generates heat in the sun to keep it from cooling? Our theory is that its contraction generates it, for contraction supposedly heats. But that is not the answer, for contraction does not heat nor generate. Contraction is possible only as a result of generation, not as its cause. Generation must precede contraction. It does not follow it. Heat follows as a result of contraction. Heat radiates. Radiation is the opposite of generation, and opposites act in opposite ways. Radiation expands, and the resultant expansion cools, while generation contracts, and the resultant contraction heats. Here again is the father-mother principle manifesting its law of equal, opposite, and sequential interchange. The cold of expanded space generates the sun's heat by compressing large volume into smaller volume. The high pressure of incandescence is born from the low pressure of vacuous blackness. in accordance with the law of rhythmic balanced interchange between all pairs of father-mother opposites. The temperature cycle. The temperature cycle resulting from balanced interchange between the cold of space and the heat of suns is as follows. Cold generates, generation contracts, contraction heats, heat radiates, radiation expands, and expansion cools. Thus, our hot sun is being generated from cold space via its poles and is radiated back again into space via its equator in accord with the father-mother reciprocative process of inside out, outside in turning, and will continue to generate increasing heat in the sun until it becomes a true sphere. This spherical perfection has not yet been attained, for the sun has not yet reached the amplitude of its wave, where all forming matter becomes true spheres. One opposite borns the other. When the amplitude position is attained, its radiation will then begin to exceed its generation. It will be in the same condition as a man who has just passed its maturity high point when death and life interchange their preponderances. From that point on, cold space will bore a black hole through the sun from pole to pole and will expand into a giant ring centered by a smaller sun recondensed from the remnant of its expanding self. This is a side note. It will look much like a donut or a torus shape, like many planets do or stars do when they disintegrate, when they're in their disintegration period. Okay, I'll begin again. Many such ring nebulas are visible in the heavens, notably in the Lyra Ring Nebula. The stars tell the whole story. Excellent examples of the degeneration of a sun into a ring or rings by the inside-out turning process of negative electricity are the Owl Nebula in Ursa Majoris and the Dumbbell Nebula in Vulpecula. I hope I said that right. One can likewise witness this inside-out turning process in his kitchen range. Jets of burning gas are seen as a blue and green flame around black holes which center each jet. These gases are negatively preponderant, which means they are thrusting out from their centering in excess of pulling inward from it. And a caption from the Divine Iliad. He who seeketh life without the light will find death, but he who seeketh the light will find eternal life, even when he walketh toward death. He who knoweth not the light shall die to find it, but he who knoweth the light shall never die. Excuse me. In man's inhaling there is life, and death trails his exhaling. Yet must man breathe out to live again, and deeply in that he may die. Know thou, then, that I alone live. I do not die, but out of me cometh both seeming life and death. Seeming. Life is but the inward flow of my thinking's divided pulsing, and death is the outward flow. Know also that the divisions of my thinking are but equal halves of one, for I again say that I am one, and that all things which come from me are one, divided to appear as two. All things come and go from my divided thinking. All coming things are living things, and all those which go are dead. Know thou that all creating things are resurrected from the dead, and dead things live again through my divided thinking. Again, I say that all things are bound as one through light. I am forever creating my living body and destroying it in seeming death, that it may live to me to die and live again. The end of life and death is life's new beginning. Both life and death are one in me. All things are forever living and forever dying, and while they live, they die, and also while they are in death, they live. Such is my decree, my universal law, from which there is no escape for man or star or grain of sand, for all things flow from me that they may appear to man, and return to me, that they may disappear from his senses in the cycle of my thinking. I am the repetitive God. All things which flow to me and from me flow again both ways through me forever in a cycle which ends not, nor has begun. From my right hand life flows one way and turneth to me full spent as death, while full death floweth the other way and returneth to me renewed as life. Around my cycle both life and death wend their opposite ways, each seeking each, until the twain meet balanced at maturity, which each life gives half to each. But when they pass that halfway point on their separate ways to me, each then gives thought to each, and then both know, as they return to me, that each are both, and both are one in me. Death is the seed of light. Death rebounds from death as life. From death life springeth from the soil, and from life death floweth, even as the perfume leaves the rose. Death giveth of its one. I'm sorry. Death giveth. Death giveth of itself to life, that life may live, and likewise life giveth to death, that death may die. Life is regenerating death, and death is life regenerating. Light leaves thy sun as death, and comes to thee as life. And when thy death leaves thee, it likewise becomes new life, to whom or in what its impact quickens with thy death. Two ways there are of breath, the inward charging breath of life, and the outward discharging breath of death. All opposed pairs of my divided thinking pass in opposite ways along these two paths, and their traversing of my cycle. All things which I have divided into pairs of opposites have within them both life and death. But one of these is greater than the other until they meet as equals halfway round my life-death cycle. When once they meet and they pass, then they exchange these qualities, the greater growing lesser and the lesser growing greater. Even though life is full when life is born, death emanates from life itself as death, and takes the opposite path towards death. Likewise does death emanate from death to weaken it when death is strong, until life conquereth death to make death live as life. Verily I say, life cannot live without dying as it lives, nor can death conquer life as gather aught to it but death. Life is my multiplying breath of compressive action, and death is my dividing, opposed breath. Okay, let me start this this paragraph over again. Life is my multiplying breath of compressive action, and death is my dividing, opposed breath which expands as life's reaction. Hear thou me when I again say that life and death are opposites which pass each other on my cycle as going opposite ways. Life attracteth life to life by its compression, and death repelleth both death and life by its expansion. I am the interchanging point of life and death. I balance life with death, and never in their changing can either be death or life outbalance death or life. Write thou that death and life are one, as the swinging pendulum is one, even though it oscillates two ways in its incessant swinging. He who travels east in my curved universe arrives at west as surely as he who travels west. Likewise, life traileth the eastern road to arrive at death, while death taketh the western road, where life awaiteth to quicken death as life. So also does death traileth the road of life to interchange with life, while life likewise traileth the road of death to find itself through death. Hear thou me say, there is no death in all my imagined universe. It is not but life, for not but life and love is in me and my knowing. Naught is there in my thinking which is not my knowing, and not but life and love are in my thinking. Take thou man's death away from him in this new day of man. Give him eternal life in me by knowing me in him. From the Divine Iliad.